Okay, so today I'm going to show how to use Illustrator, and some of these things might be really useful for your posters and your work, so I decided it's worth it to show it to you all even though we haven't done Illustrator in class. So check it out, scrub through the video and see if there's anything you're interested in trying. So first I'm going to create a new document. I'll just, whatever it says, tabloid is fine. And here I am within Illustrator. So Illustrator works differently than Photoshop and InDesign in that it's kind of like a giant table and you can have a bunch of pages on it. So here so on my left hand panel at the bottom there's an artboard tool, and when I click that it kind of highlights the artboard, which means I can change the size of it. So you can either work within a specific size if you know that's you know what your end goal is, but you can also just kind of have just work in this space as though it's just kind of a practice space until you figure out what you want to do, which is what I tend to do. So I also could duplicate, so I'm holding Option or Alt, duplicate my artboard, and then I have a bunch of them. So that can be useful, but also you can kind of work anywhere in here, even outside the artboard. It doesn't really matter that much. Okay, so I'm going to show you a few different things. So first, because we're doing type, I'm going to focus more on type things you could do. So with my type tool, so I click again on the T, that's the same in all programs. When I click down, okay, it needs to be a lot larger. It automatically writes a word. So I will make it larger so we can see it from a distance. And I will change it to some other typeface. This one I had loaded. And then I'll write something beautiful blue cat. Okay, so let's start with just some basic things you can do. There's a lot of different effects you can apply in Illustrator. So right now I haven't done anything to my type. It's still live. I can change it to a blue cat, a tiny blue cat. Then in here, if I click this under effects, there's a lot of different things I can do. So you can try all of these. So here's extrude and bevel. That'll extrude my type into looking three-dimensional, and I can manipulate how I want that to look. So I can it's showing me how it's moving around, custom rotation. I can add perspective, and it might make your computer buffer a little bit, so just be aware of that. You can extrude to different depths, so it's kind of hard to see because my type is black. Everything is the same color. So I can actually go into more options if I wanted to and change where the color comes from. So that's just a more option drop down menu, and I could change the shading color to being a different shade. So here I'm picking red. So if you wanted to find this, it's just fewer options, more options at the bottom of your 3D extrude and bevel options. So mine doesn't look too good, but it could be a useful tool to have. So I'm going to click OK. Maybe I'll change from this green to a slightly better color. Here's my pink. It's still dark, but I can go back and change my initial type to a different color, and that'll also affect the way it's applying that 3D effect. So that's a fun one to try. I'll just duplicate my tiny blue cat. And so notice how it might buffer a little bit, so you can beware when you're using these things. And this is not legible right now. I just did this quickly, but you can make it in such a way where it would be legible. So once I click here, so either I could just type a new thing, but also I want you to notice that under appearance on the right side properties, there's a extrude and bevel effect. So I have this little effects drop down menu. I can just delete my effects, and now I just have my word again. So that's a nice feature you can just modify. I can also go back on this one, and when I click extrude and bevel, it pops up again, and I can kind of go back and change it. Maybe I'll make my extrude depth smaller, and I'll try and make it a bit more legible. Okay, so here we go. I made this 3D looking thing, which can be a useful tool. So now I'll just duplicate this. So in order to do that, I'll just hold Option, and in Illustrator, and this only works in Illustrator, but if you hit Command D, it will duplicate. So in this case, D stands for duplicate. It will just duplicate it as many times as you want. So I'll show that again later, but you can do it with anything. So if I were to draw a square and hold Option or Alt and drag it somewhere and then duplicate it, it just keeps going. So that's a really useful tool to make patterns and things like that. So let's just try some other effects real quick. So I'll just go on my tiny blue cat under effects. There's other 3D. I'm not gonna go through all of them. Okay, this is gonna be making my computer struggle a little bit. Okay, I'm just canceling that. So effects, let's try a different one. Let's try distort. There's different ones. Let's try roughen. And you can click preview. Make sure you're clicking preview so you see what you're doing. But you can, you know, this is kind of a cool look. It looks like it looks kind of like a magnet that's being pulled. Different little magnet particles are being pulled apart, which is kind of fun. And then you can go really crazy with it and you know, make it larger. And again, you know, you can still make sure that it is legible if you're going to use this as type, but it can be a fun effect. So that's roughen. And again, what's nice is here there's actually still editable, so it's applying this effect still to live type. So now I have a big blue cat. So here's this effect. Again, you can play around in the drop down menu. There's a lot of different options. Zigzag. Okay, this one's similar to roughen, but it's more zigzaggy, but that's pretty cool. So a crazy blue cat. But yeah, this definitely could be a useful thing to use for your poster systems project. Then let's try here, effects, twist. So that kind of alters on an angle, so it's kind of a flowy look. And you can go, so when I hold shift and I change, it goes faster, so it does in increments of 10 degrees instead of just 1. And you can go, I think, in either direction. So I'll just change the angle. So this is just twist. Okay, tiny red cat. Oops. So here's, we have a whole collection. I'll just move them around, make my artboard larger. And maybe I'll delete this artboard. So if I click on this one, I can just delete it. Just so I have more space to work with. So now let's just try some more effects. So I can just show you, but definitely just explore. All of these might have interesting things. Let's try stylize. I can create a drop shadow, and I can change the opacity of the drop shadow, the color of it. It can be cool purple, offset by a certain amount, right? So it could be floating way below. Blur it to different amounts, so you have different options what you can do here. And you can also change the mode. So anyway, that would, in this case, doesn't change much. If it were applying the drop shadow onto something, that would probably change. So you see how it's multiplying with what's below. So if I go here and I click on a tiny blue cat, and on my under appearance I change the effects, I can edit my initial effect and try to see what happens when I click screen. It's multiplying differently, or it's modifying the way that the color, the drop shadow color, is being applied onto whatever's below it, which is nice to know, you know, that that's an option. Tiny blue cat. I'm doing some crazy things here with my cat. Okay, and I could change this color to a different one, and I think the drop shadow would remain the same color. So now I have these. Okay, I need another. I'll just delete my effect, and now I'll duplicate this again. So Option, holding Option, and then Command D to duplicate what I did. Effects, I can try warp. You can warp on different angles and different shapes. So I can warp flag. Okay, that was crazy. For some reason, it's having a hard time showing me a preview. So I think if I click, maybe it just takes some time. But so you have different warp options. This one's flag. This one is bulge. This one is arch. So they all are kind of interesting and very hard to read. So beware when you're using that. If you're using it for type, you don't want to go too extreme. But it could be justified if you need it for something that you want to alter your type in these ways. Okay, now let's try it. Let's see. Let's go in under the effects. So these are all, it says Illustrator effects. Oh, here, let's try stylize feather just to see what that does. So this one kind of, it makes the type more transparent, or it kind of affects this, applies this blurring effect. It's kind of hard to see, so I'll zoom in. Maybe I need a bolder font to be able to see this well. Let's see what I have here. So you can kind of see how it's applying to that. But maybe with this bolder font, I need a more extreme feather effect. So that could definitely be useful for some of you. Now let's try something else. You know, inner glow, outer glow, all sorts of things you can do here. So play around with the effects. You can definitely recommend just opening your Illustrator and seeing what's there. Some of these Photoshop effects are really not great. They kind of look like they they exist from another time period. So I would beware using those for sure. Probably wouldn't try them for this unless you're really going for a specific look that, you know, it's like retro, good, bad kind of thing. So I'll cancel that for now. Okay, so I think that'll be this for the effects. And then I'll make another video that shows some other great things you can do with Illustrator, including putting a pattern into a type and things like that.